Hello Internet! I am now a two-time regional champion, having won the Sheffield regionals this last weekend, and this is the video where you lucky people are going to get to see the team that I used to win. I'm hoping this is going to be quite a concise video. I don't want it to go on for too long, but before we get on to the actual team, I just want to go over a few things because the last video you saw on my channel was my Worlds team, and you could probably tell in that video that my will to play Pokemon was not as strong as it had once been, and so I almost didn't go to this tournament. I really almost didn't go to Sheffield because I do live in Scotland now. I live in Edinburgh, and it is, like a 5-hour drive down there pretty much, so I almost didn't go, but I thought, okay, we can maybe try and get some points. Worlds is in London, we can go for a day one invite, and most importantly, I can go down and see my family at the same time because it had been a while since I'd seen them. So really, they are the reason why I went down and played in this tournament. It was to go and see them, and I thought I might as well combine it with a regional there. So my preparation for this tournament was very, very minimal, and I don't want to be one of those people that thinks the cool, saying, "Oh, I made my team the night before" and all the rest of it, because the team that I used. I had been sort of working on and tweaking for almost the whole of the Ultra Series. Really, it's just a team that I didn't think would do too well in a serious tournament. So there's that. But I don't know. I feel like at this regional at Sheffield, my mind was balanced. I felt mentally balanced. I felt like I had things in perspective, unlike a tournament I've been to for a long time, because the previous night I'd been to see my mum. I stayed over at my mum's house, and I think that really helped my mind get into a good place. Things were put into perspective. This is just a Pokemon tournament after all, so that was good. And I knew that I was going to go and see my brother after the Swiss rounds as well too. So in a way, I kind of knew that, well, if I don't do that well, then I've got good stuff going on. There's still a reason for me to be here in Sheffield, basically. So I don't know. I mean, here's one new Basil lesson for you. A Basil lesson. That's it. Basil spot. Yeah. Anyway, a new lesson is that I don't know. Maybe get things in perspective. Talk to your family before a tournament if you're feeling stressed about it, because not that I talked to them about the Pokemon thing, but it cleansed my mind. I felt fantastic going into the tournament mentally. So there's that. But also, no matter how good you are as a player, I feel like you will have ups and downs playing Pokemon, because a lot of the Ultra Series for me was quite down, but obviously I've had ups in the past, and it's just inevitable that things will go your way sometimes and they won't go your way sometimes. Throughout this tournament, I felt like things did go towards my favor. I won most of the speed ties. I, hit most of my moves, most of them that I needed to hit, basically. And it's just, another lesson, another theme, I suppose, I want to get across, essentially, is that, time will come. You have to trust that your time will come eventually, whatever happens. But I feel like I'm waffling on now, and that's one thing that I said I wasn't going to do. So this is a team that I did use. You've probably seen it on Twitter and everything as well too. Oh, by the way, please retweet this and share the video and like it and all the rest of it too, because because let's get Gravity everywhere on the ladder. I've already seen a few Gravity teams on the Showdown ladder, but this is the team that I used, and to maybe get a better idea of how I came to this, let's look at some previous teams that I have used. Here we go. Now, this is, well, some of these are probably familiar with you if you've been following me for a number of years anyway. But I guess one of the archetypes, if you want to call it that I am known for is Gravity. And these are the three main teams that I've used in the past. You can see there's a general theme throughout all of them. There's a Sableye in all of them, so there's a almost guaranteed Gravity setup, unless there's like a Scrappy Fake Out or whatever. So almost a guaranteed Gravity. There's a Pokemon with Hypnosis, either the Mega Gengar or the Lunala, which was Adrenaline Orb on my Sun team. We'll get onto that a little bit later. There's a Grass Whistle user as well too, Whimsicott or Gengar. Gengar was the poison type, as we didn't have the Gengar. We had Lunala instead in that team. And the Groudon to set up with Swords Dance, sweep through with Precipice Blades, or maybe a Volcarona or a Azumarill in the 15 version to set up. Either way, it's setting up and sweeping. So that's the general theme of the team. But as you can see, back at the team, here we go. There is no Sableye this time. I felt like a week before the tournament, I wrote off this team. I thought it just doesn't work. You know, there's too many Finny, too many Coco. Can't rely on putting things to sleep. And I think it was as I had that thought that I can't use this, I had the realization that actually I don't really have to put things to sleep, do I? You know, and this is really one of the good things that Mewtwo does on this team. It is a threat itself. You know, Mewtwo, as we'll see coming up, you know, has got gravity on it. It was my main gravity setter, although I did have others as well too. And this is why I like Mewtwo over Sableye, over other gravity setters, because it is a threat itself. I don't have to sacrifice it. I don't have to wait for an eject button to, you know, swap me out into something that does threaten. Mewtwo is a threat straight away. And in a restricted format like this, where you're so desperate for good Pokemon, like 4 good Pokemon to take to a matchup, it's good that you've got a restricted Pokemon that is useful and integral in 2 different ways, if you see what I mean. Hopefully I'm making some sort of sense. You know, it's not a Sableye that's a wasted slot just to get gravity, basically. It's a threat that does things and gets up gravity. So, if I don't get up gravity first turn, that's not a problem. You know, I can maybe get it up again in the future, but it's a threat itself. I don't have to put things to sleep. I can threaten things. So, I'm going to go through the team, and I'm not going to go through in this order like I normally would. I'm going to go through in order of not really importance, because, you know, it feels kind of harsh to say some are more important than others, but I'm going to go through in the order of how often they were used. And I would say the most common lead I led with was Mewtwo and Gengar. That's the most common lead. So here is the Mewtwo. As you can see, we've got the Psychic Z Crystal on this Mewtwo, which gives me 2 very nice options. It's as fast as possible, so base 130, speed ties with Tapu Koko, speed ties with Crobat and Mega Gengar as well too. Not my Mega Gengar, or the Mega Gengar, which is brilliant for, you know, especially if you win the speed tie on that against the Koko. It just puts on fast pressure straight away. With Side Strike, which is a massively powerful move, hits on the physical side, as I'm sure you know, but that is extra good in this format because of things like Kyogre, which are not as bulky on the physical side, and Assault Vest Rayquaza, which are very bulky on the special side especially, but Side Strike cuts through a lot of things that are very specially defensive. We've got Focus Blast because I wanted another way to hit things like Stack Attacker. Incineroar is like a byproduct of things that I can hit. Gravity, as I was mentioning, and Protect. Gravity is the key though, because my Gengar, as we'll come on to it in just a moment, is 1 speed point less than Mewtwo after Mega Evolving, and so the combination is I can Gravity and I can Hypnosis and start putting things to sleep. If I look on Team Preview and they haven't got a Tapu Koko or a Tapu Fini, then, or maybe something like a Prankster Taunt, then I know that I can just start putting things to sleep, because an instant lead of 2 base 130 Pokemon is fast, and they're both very hard hitters, you know, either way. So there's that. But the Z Crystal on the Mewtwo means that, as well as the hard-hitting physical Side Strike, I can go for a Shattered Psyche, which hits for more damage on the special side, or I can go for a Z Gravity, which is nice having 2 options for a Z Crystal. But Z Gravity basically gets gravity up through Taunt, but it raises your special attack by 1 stage as well too. So I would normally look on the team preview and see, is there anything that I would want a Shattered Psyche for? Normally, the targets would be a Groudon or a Landorus or something that's basically not as physically, not especially bulky rather than physically bulky. You know what I mean? So if they don't have Groudon, don't have Landorus, if they have got things like Rayquaza and Kyogre, then I will want to be using Side Strike really, other than Shattered Psyche. I can go for the Z Gravity, get a +1 special attack, and hit, with +1, +1 special attack side strikes. Potentially in terrain, as I've got Lily on the team as well too. So Mewtwo was actually really good. It pulled out some tricky moments for me, and I've got a new appreciation for Mewtwo definitely. But the other lead was with Gengar as well too. So Mewtwo Gengar, as you can see, the spread here, we are just one off of max speed. I did toy around with going like a little bit slower and a bit bulkier, but I went with this speed stat just because it does speed tie with Ultra Necrozma, but I would rather speed tie with Ultra Necrozma than be slower than Ultra Necrozma, basically. Because Ultra Necrozma could potentially be an issue for the team. So I did want to have the at least speed tie there. The bulk is, I'm pretty sure, to survive the most common kind of Salamences, Double Edge, and basically the rest is in special attack, so it still does hit Tapu Fini for a massive chunk. It still one-shots Tapu Koko as well too, which is very important. And as you can see, going back to the other teams, when I did have Lunala on the Sun team, I did miss being able to trap things in. The Shadow Tag is such a good ability, it really is, especially when you're putting them to sleep, and you can get free switches in if you're putting things to sleep that turn. It is such a good ability. But we've got well, I'm gonna say the moveset that you would expect, but I suppose it's not a normal Mega Gengar, is this? Moveset that you would expect on a Gravity Team Mega Gengar. It's the same set that I've used every other time I've used Mega Gengar. Sludge Bomb, especially important in this format to hit Xerneas and the Tapus, obviously. Hypnosis, as paired with Gravity, is 100% accurate, as I'm sure you know, which puts things to sleep all the time, unless it's terrain. The other thing about the Shadow Tag is that if you trap them in without the terrain, you know that you can put things to sleep as well too, unless like the Coco Winter Speed Time Vault switches into something, perhaps. But like a Finny, if they've got both. But yeah, like the Shadow Tag is fantastic. Hypnosis to put them to sleep. Hex over Shadow Ball or whatever, because it is a really powerful move when you hit status targets. Normally they're going to be asleep, so if you've got a sleeping Groudon in front of them, then you can Hex for a base power of 130, which is really, really powerful. That's approaching like a weak Z move, just with one normal attack. Like, it's massive, like base 130 hexes, and protect just because it's nice to be able to protect your Pokemon. Next Pokemon is Groudon, who I've had. Well, I mean, it's one of the stars of the Gravity Team, isn't it, really? And this spread is pretty much the same spread that I've used every time I've used Primal Groudon on the Gravity Team. It is jolly. It is as fast as possible, because I haven't got too much speed control on this team. I have got Tailwind, but there's no Icy Winds or anything like that. No Trick Room option, anything like that. So I do just want to be faster than, ideally, every other Groudon. Jolly Groudon does exist. Some other people use it, but it's not that common. Most people go Adamant to get the most out of their attack stat, but I like knowing that at worst I'm speed tying with other Groudon, especially because if I'm setting up Gravity and potentially Swords Dancing. I don't want their Groudon to be able to come in and threaten my Groudon. Basically, I need to win the Groudon war. That's quite key in this team. But yeah, the little bit of special offense, can't really remember what it does, to be honest. It's probably got something to do with Hyper Voice from Salamander, something from 2016. I'm not too sure. And the moves are, I suppose, actually a little bit different to what I did use in 16. Precipice Blade, Sword Stance, Protect. In 16, I used Rock Tomb instead of Fire Punch, because I did have Kieran with a fire attack on there as well too. But I think Fire Punch is quite important on this version of the team, just to hit things like Ferrothorn and Celesteela, get around Wide Guard, all that kind of stuff. It did, and an accurate move that is really powerful as well too. Whereas Rock Tomb, there's still that 5% chance missing. But the Groudon itself is pretty straightforward, as fast as possible. Both of its same type moves, Sword Stance to boost up, while their opponents are hopefully asleep, and Protect as well. Next though, we've got something a little bit different, something a little bit interesting. We've got Tapu Lele. So, Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini are, they kind of get in the way of putting things to sleep a little bit, so it makes some sense to have some terrain control myself. So I have got a Tapu Lele here. No skill swap, although I really did toy with the idea of having skill swap to have even better terrain control and better weather control. It would have actually done a lot of business skill swap, but there's just no room for it because being able to protect was massive in some games as well too. If an opponent sees Tapu Lele on Team Preview, normally you would tend to expect it to be Choice Scarfed. Maybe on my team, especially, you would think it's Choice Scarfed because you think, okay, it's going to be Scarfed, so it can Gravity first, and then whatever can Hypnosis. But there's no Scarf here. We have gone for the Adrenaline Orb, as you can see, and I've got an interesting history with Adrenaline Orb because I did get top 4 in a regional in 18 with an Adrenaline Orb Jinx. I used Adrenaline Orb Thunderous at Worlds in 18 as well too. I've played around with Adrenaline Orb Xurkitree back in 17 as well too. Adrenaline Orb is one of these little items that I do quite enjoy playing around with, and because Incineroar is on so many teams, I think it was close to around 80% of all of the top 32 teams in the regional. And if there's not an Incineroar, there's probably a Salamence or something with Intimidate. Chances are you are going to get your Adrenaline Orb activated, and then basically you're as fast as you would be with a Choice Scarf. So, if you are in the situation where you predict them to lead with the Incineroar, you can go something like Mega Gengar and Lele, get the Adrenaline Orb, and still be able to Gravity and Hypnosis that way. But it also makes Tapu Lele faster than Salamence, faster than Rayquaza, and things that you do want to be hitting with Moonblast. I am timid, I'm not max special attack, as you can see with the spread here, so I would never expect to one-shot a Salamence or one-shot a Rayquaza, definitely, but being able to, get the jump on them, be faster, get the attack off first is really important. The spread here is to survive. I'm pretty sure I EV'd this to survive just a 4 attack Mega Rayquaza Dragon Ascent. You might want to check that if you're really bothered, but it's got bulk in it to do. I think it's to do that, and that did turn out to be very important in a few games, especially the final. Actually, game 2 of the final, my opponent's Mega Rayquaza Assault Vested, so it maybe had a few more than 4 in attack, maybe a little bit more, but Tapu Lele survived the Dragon Ascent. We got the gravity off, and did some business from there too. So this bulk actually was really important. Moonblast, Psychic, Gravity, Protect. Psychic was the only other one that I was thinking about maybe changing for Psyshock if I was slightly more worried about Xerneas perhaps. But I felt like just as a bit better, maybe Groudon Insurance, I prefer Psychic just to hit Groudon a little bit harder. Psyshock doesn't do much to Groudon at all because it's so physically bulky, but Psychic, and it's just generally a more powerful move, a higher base attack, isn't it? Psychic than Psyshock. So I just went with Psychic. But the Adrenaline Orb was actually really, really good. Just to get the +1 speed. It's nice to see your opponent's face when they're like, "Oh, what's that?" activated in front of you as well too. But those were the 4 that I would take to most games. Probably the 4 most commonly taken together: the Mewtwo, Mega Gengar, Groudon, and Tapu Lele. But there are 2 other members of the team, of course. There is Whimsicott, who makes its return back from 2016 with a Focus Sash again, but a different ability this time. Now, in the past, we've had Prankster, but Prankster isn't quite so good anymore. So I've gone with Chlorophyll, especially because I've got a Tapu Lele on my own team, and especially because I've got a Groudon on my team. So I can potentially Taunt or Grass Whistle, as you can see the moves there, Dark types, and Whimsicott is most of the time faster than everything else on the field as well too. So sometimes the opponent wouldn't even realize the ability until maybe later on in the game when they switch their Dark type into something, or they expect to not be able to be taunted or put to sleep or whatever because I've got a Tapu Lele on the field. But as you can see, it is basically the same, almost the same as the Whimsicott that I was using in 2016. Focus Sash is nice to be able to take, at least take 1 guaranteed hit. Moonblast so that I can threaten Yveltal somewhat. Obviously it doesn't threaten them too much, but being able to hit Yveltal and Salamence and Rayquaza is really good, because Yveltal is one of the things that this team does struggle with most. But I have got Lele with Moonblast. I have got Whimsicott with Moonblast. It does do a decent chunk of damage. Taunt is, well, mainly the taunt was to stop either Trick Room or Redirection. I mean, if it's a Moongus Redirection, then Whimsicott itself can get around it, but if my partner wants to hit the Pokemon being redirected away from, then Taunt is handy there. Tailwind isn't a move that I normally use, but I did feel like it was important on this Whimsicott. And Grass Whistle, as I mentioned, is the move that, well, I would say catches people off guard, but I don't know. I suppose not everyone's been around since 2016, so maybe not everyone is aware of Grass Whistle. But it is a move that puts your opponent to sleep. It is normally 55% accurate, I'm pretty sure, so that means in Gravity it is 91% accurate. And it hits grass types as well too, whereas something like Sleep Powder, not that Whimsicott can learn Sleep Powder, but you know, if Venusaur was an option maybe. Actually, Venusaur in Sun had Grass Whistle in it as well too. But I can Grass Whistle grass types. I can Grass Whistle through substitutes as well too, which isn't a mechanic that came to pass in the tournament, but it is a sound move, so it can go through substitutes as well. I suppose it means that I might not be able to Grass Whistle a soundproof Pokemon like Komodo. That's interesting. But I can just Moonblast it instead, I guess. But otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward Whimsicott. I did bring this Whimsicott a few times in the tournament. It was really good in Game 5, Round 5, I think, in the tournament. I would normally bring it if I feel like I needed to Tailwind myself. So if they've got like a Tornadus or something like that, if I know that they are definitely going to be able to get a Tailwind up, or maybe if they've got Yveltal, I definitely want to, you know, either Tailwind alongside it or Taunt it so that it can't Tailwind as well too, which I did get to do at some point in the tournament in one of the earlier rounds. But Whimsicott doesn't come that often, but if they haven't got any terrain control themselves, if they haven't got a Koko or a Finny, I don't necessarily need Tapu Lele myself, and I can just have extra sleep pressure and really go to town on them, basically. The last Pokemon on the team, though, is Togedemaru, and this is the last one that was added to the team, and it's quite a quirky set as well, too. I do have to thank Jamie Boyd for the inspiration behind this Togedemaru, but it is a Choice Scarf Togedemaru, as you can see. Again, with a straightforward spread, it's an offensive spread on this Togedemaru, but there are reasons for Togedemaru, because looking at the rest of the team, there it is, something like a Scarf, Tapu Lele, which is a very common Pokemon, just goes through the team. You know, Mega Gengar is threatened by it, Groudon is two-shot by it, my own Tapu Lele, you know, is going to be slower than it, obviously, and sometimes to carry Shadow Ball as well, for Mewtwo perhaps as well. So we've got Scarf Togedemaru. It is one base speed higher than Tapu Lele, so this is jolly. We are max attack, and we've got Iron Head. And if they are no bulk, Tapu Lele, Iron Head is a very, 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 very good roll, almost 100% to one shot. If Tapu Lele's got a bit of bulk on it, which I'm assuming sort of 76 HP and 4 defense, that kind of level of bulk, then Iron Head is still about a 56% chance to one shot. And if it doesn't one shot, there is the 30% chance to flinch as well too. So, so that is the reason why I went Jolly over Adamant. If I did go Adamant, most Tapu Lele are modest if they're Scarfed, and Adamant would still be faster, but there are still some timid Tapu Lele, and I did want to just guarantee that I would be faster than all Choice Scarf Tapu Lele to get the Iron Head on them. But also, there is Nuzzle, which like Iron Head's the only sort of really offensive move on this set, I suppose. But we've got Nuzzle, which can pair well with Mega Gengar, because Hex does, you know, it is double to 130 base power if they are asleep, but it also doubles if they are paralyzed as well. And so something like Lunala, which, again, looking at the rest of the team, it does look pretty weak to Lunala, doesn't it? But if I do lead something like Togedemaru and Gengar, then I've got options to potentially go for a Nuzzle into the Lunala and Hex it, and that will definitely one-shot it. I mean, with the amount of special attack investment I've got on the Mega Gengar, even just an Iron Head to break the Shadow Shield, and a normal Hex that isn't boosted will one-shot most Lunala at that point as well too. So I don't have to Nuzzle, but it just makes it overkill really. But also it's good to paralyze opponents, obviously, if I'm not going to be trying to put them to sleep. If they've got a Coco, for example, it did do well for me in a game against an Ultra Necrozma and Aerodactyl and all that kind of stuff. Super Fang is the last move, I suppose, on the set, the last one that was added, but I just felt like it would do more work than Zing Zap or any other move, I suppose, just because it is a guaranteed, well, I'll say guaranteed, a 90%, 50% on any target. And it's nice for doubling into things. I've got a lot of fast Pokemon on this team. I've got Tapu Lele, which is reasonably fast, but I've got Mega Gengar, I've got Mewtwo as well too. So the combination of Super Fang and Psystrike, and the combination of Super Fang and Sludge Bomb, perhaps, there's not many Pokemon that, if that's neutral damage, you're going to survive that. They would have to be very, very bulky to survive that. But there is also Gravity on Togedemaru as well too, so that if I do lead Togedemaru and Gengar and they don't go with Lunala, or I feel like just going for Gravity instead, then I've still got the option of going for Gravity and Hypnosis and going that route, into the battle as well too instead. The only downside is that obviously if I do go with Gravity on Togedemaru, I have to switch it out next turn, and they will obviously be able to see that I'm Choice Scarfed as well too. But this Togedemaru did do pretty well for me. I didn't take it in many games, but the games that I did take it, it was pretty good actually. So here's the team again. One more time looking at the team. We did have some things that I would rather not bump into. The two main culprits, I suppose, are things like Yveltal, so like really bulky and offensive, I guess, dark types, which I guess Yveltal really is the only big one, the only main one. So Yveltal, is what I'm trying to say, is an issue. Because I've got two Moonblasts. I can put it to sleep with Mega Gengar if they haven't got terrain, although they usually do. I haven't got, I suppose Zing Zap on Togedemaru would be good for Yveltal there. That might be a case for it, but still I can Super Fang it for 50%. But Yveltal just being faster than Tapu Lele naturally and being faster than Groudon naturally means it puts a lot of pressure on my team. And if it is Z, especially, it can one-shot Groudon, perhaps it can one-shot Tapu Lele, and the big parts of my team being threatened there. So Yveltal was an issue. And Lunala, I guess, was the only other thing that really I'd wince at to see on Team Preview. If it's not Scarfed, which most of them aren't, most of them are Z moves still, I could, like I say, Nuzzle and Hex, or Ironhead and Hex, or whatever. As long as the Lunala is not faster than Gengar, I'm okay, pretty much. So Scarf Lunala, and along the same line, things like Scarfed, Gengar, Scarfed, Blacephalon, fast Scarfed ghosts like that, they would be a massive threat to this team as well too. So if they have got a Scarf Lunala or Scarf Gengar or whatever, I have to play very carefully around it and essentially just try and nuzzle it, or maybe try and get Tailwind up and go that way. But let's have a look at my route through the tournament. Here we go. They were my Swiss opponent and my top cut opponent. It is pretty crazy, I think, that in the Swiss rounds, 3 of my opponents went 6-1. 3 of my opponents top cut, and so therefore 3 of my opponents' only loss of the day was to me, which is quite wild, really. And also, really, that overall in the tournament, I went 10-0. 10 set wins to no losses. And I went in individual games 20 wins and 4 losses. I've put a note here of the wins and losses. I don't take notes, so I don't have, I haven't really chronicled exactly what happened. But I remember the round 1 of Swiss against Lee Watson there. He had Bronzong, Zed Bronzong, with Dragoon, obviously, and Groudon, and he had Hypnosis himself. And I think it was game 2 that I lost, because I had the game won as long as I hit my Precipice Blades on the last turn. because we were out of gravity at this point, and I missed. And round 1, I thought to myself, okay, Pokemon, is that how we're going to do it today? The first Precipice Blade's out of gravity, and I miss it. But thankfully, I did win that third game. Round 2, I don't really remember much of. Round 3 against a Mister from France. I do remember he had an Yveltal. This guy, he had an Yveltal. He had a pretty nasty matchup for me, really, as I remember. But I don't remember exactly what happened, but I do remember in the second game I did get quite a large piece of luck. I can't remember if it was hitting a hypnosis without gravity or I mean, that's not really luck. That's 60%, so it must have been something else. But I got a piece of luck and won that second game without it going to a game 3. Round 4 as well against Matt Carter. He was the guy with Ultra Necrozma and Mega Aerodactyl. That was a really, really wild set. My Groudon survived on, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 HP from his Necrozma's Earth Power, and I had Swords Dance, and that survival allowed me to sweep through him in the second game. He missed 2 Precipice Blades in game 1 for me to take that game, so I got a little bit lucky there. Round 5 against Yuri. Games 1 and game 2 were mostly decided, I mean not entirely, but mostly decided on the turn 1. Game 1 I got turn 1 right, game 2 he got turn 1 right. Game 3, because I'd taken different Pokemon game 2, game 3 I took the same Pokemon I'd taken game 2, the game that I'd lost. And Whimsicott was amazing there, because I had the Sun Up, I had the terrain out as well too, because he didn't have any Tapus, and that meant my Whimsicott was immune to his Tornadus' taunts, and I was super fast. I could put things to sleep. I had Gravity Up. Groudon came out, Swords Danced, and swept through his team basically. Round 6 against Serkan, who I would play later on in the final, were pretty straightforward games. He used his Kartana in the Swiss rounds, and my Shattered Psyche, even out of terrain, one-shot it, because it wasn't Assault Vest, it wasn't Focus Sash. I was assuming it was a Z move, but yeah, Mewtwo Shattered Psyche just one-shot it without any boosts at all, so he stopped bringing it in the top cut. And round 7 against Casti, a veteran of VGC, I think he won the Spanish Nationals in 2012, so he's been playing this game for a really long time. He really is a veteran. But he played this really interesting because he had Ho-Oh, he had Dialga, and Mega Venusaur, and Landorus, and Incineroar, and Tapu Fini. But I felt like I had a good matchup. Both of his restricted Pokemon don't like playing against Groudon in Gravity, but I don't think he was playing these games properly. I felt like he was just scouting for information, and I mean he was attacking. Obviously, he was playing it. He was playing against me, but he wasn't making any big calls. He wasn't doing anything fancy. So I feel like he was just trying to scout me out, really. But still, I took the win. Obviously. He didn't bring Dialga in either of those games in the Swiss as well, too, which is the thing that made me think, okay, he has got a plan going into Top Cut, if we do play again, basically, because I think his Dialga was potentially going to be good against me. In my head, it had Trick Room, but I don't think it did, actually, from what I heard going on after that. But anyway, Top Cut the next day. So at this point, I'd gone to Lincoln, met my brother, my best friend as well too. Had a nice evening, eating a pizza with lots of cheese on it. Stayed over at my brother's house. Had to drive back to Sheffield next morning, so I had to set off just before 7 in the morning. But obviously I'm not going to complain at top cutting. I would have been happy just going out at. Well, I wouldn't have been happy going out at top 8, obviously, but I would have been I would have been satisfied with my result if I had gone out at top 8, because my opponent had a Shedinja on his team, which I was a little bit worried about, to be honest, because, looking at my team there, Shedinja can hit 3 of my Pokemon for super effective damage, but if it was the same Shedinja as, I think who he took the team from, I don't think it had Shadow Claw, I think it was Shadow Sneak, so that's probably why he didn't bring it against me. But otherwise, the only things I've got on this team to hit Shedinja is my own Gengar and my Groudon. So I was a little bit worried about it, but I felt like if I kept my Groudon safe, then I would be comfortable, and I basically kept my Groudon safe, and that meant knocking out his Groudon, which I did in both games. Quite straightforward, but then I learned that I was going to be playing against Casti again in the top 4 of the tournament, and I thought, okay, he's gonna adapt, he's gonna do something different this time, and he did. He brought the Dialga, and game 1 he won. So only the third game in the entire tournament that I'd lost. So I knew I had to do something. I honestly can't remember too much else about this set aside from I know I did get a Psy Strike critical hit on his Ho-Oh in the third game. I do remember that, which was quite important. But I don't remember much else about the set. Like, everything is sort of turning into a bit of a blur at this point. And in the final, I was playing against Serkan, I guess, again as well too, which I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing that my last 2 Swiss opponents were my top 4 and finalists. At least it meant that I kind of knew their team and I'd already thought over what I would do against them. But it also meant that they had, not only scouted my team, but had played against it. They knew what they were going to do against me as well too. So Serkan, he had the Rayquaza Kyogre team. Game 1 came down to basically my Groudon against his Kyogre, and we knew that my Groudon was faster. If I hit my Precipice Blades, I won the game, but I missed my Precipice Blades, and so game 1 in the final, I lost on this 15%, this 15% miss chance, which obviously isn't a great feeling, but especially in the final in a big game like that, you can't let stuff like that affect you. You've just got to concentrate on the game in front of you, and think about the next game. There's nothing that you can do about it once it's happened. So game 2, we led the same all 3 games. I led Mewtwo and Gengar. He led Incineroar and no, he didn't. He led Tabakoko and Rayquaza all 3 games, and then swapped his Koko into Incineroar all 3 games. And all 3 games, I double protected turn 1 as well too, which I normally don't do. But in my head, I thought, okay, he's got the train. I know that his Rayquaza can't protect. If I just double protect, I know he can't capitalize, he can't substitute or Swords Dance or anything like that. And then I've got him locked in for what I want to do next turn, basically. But game 2. What happened game 2? I can't even. It's all a blur at this point. I won game 2, obviously. I feel like from my memory, I think that I managed to get weather control reasonably well. I think his Rayquaza was knocked out quite quickly. He did keep Mega Evolving his Rayquaza early on in the games as well too. Instead of leaving the airlock up, which I'm assuming is because he wanted maybe either more crunch damage on my Mewtwo, or perhaps if it doesn't Mega Evolve, maybe he was worried about a terrain boosted Psy Strike knocking it out. So maybe he wanted the extra bulk by Mega Evolving it, but he did keep Mega Evolving it. So as long as I knocked it out, and one of his other Pokemon, if I had Groudon in the back, then I would win the game, which is what happened. And in the third game, they were playing out. It was playing out, very similar to the first game. I went for a Psy Strike on his Rayquaza early on, and I got a critical hit, which I knew that's massive. I knew that's really big and should probably, in theory, give me the game. But because I thought that, I played the rest of the game very, very passively. I was double protecting on fake outs. I was playing really, really passively, way too safely, and he was capitalizing it. He was making double switches. He was getting himself into a really good position. I thought there was a very good chance I was going to lose the third game after that good start. And really, at the end of the game, it came down to my Mewtwo and Groudon versus his Koko and Kyogre. And if I Psy Strike first, I win the game. If he Thunders first, he probably wins the game, without Precipice Blade's critical hits. But thankfully, the Psy Strike animation went off, and my Precipice Blades hit. And at that point, I knew that I'd won the tournament. And it feels good, because, I'm in the elite group of people now who have won multiple, more than one regional championships. And to win the tournament undefeated, 10-0 is just massive as well too. I can't I can't be happier, really. But one more thing. I did say this would be a concise video. We're at 40 minutes now. One more thing, then. For the first time ever, here you go. I'm making this team properly public. I put it online. There's a QR code for it. It is online. It is on the website. I'll put the link in the description. But just to save you the hassle of loading up the website, here it is. Try and scan the QR code from that. Hopefully it works if your quality is high enough on the video. And you can go and use a team on BattleSpot yourself too. So thank you guys for sitting through this. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Please comment what you think about the team and my run and all the rest of it. Please like the video. Please share it and tweet it out on Twitter and all the rest of it too. I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate everyone who messaged me, who left a comment on my wall on Twitter or whatever. I appreciate all of that. I really do. But I don't want this to go on for too long, so I'm just gonna say goodbye now, and I will see you next time.